Hello, I'm Frost and welcome to my March update where I cover all the things that have been going on in the world of sci-fi gaming. Right, so before we begin the update proper, I want to say a big thank you for all of my subscribers that have got me to 500 subscribers. So it's climbing, it's the first 1,000 is really difficult, so I really appreciate your support and I wanted to say thank you very much. Not quite champagne and caviar just yet, but I might have a little bottle of Prosecco and some chips to celebrate later. And Niall's not coming on camera because he's too shy, but for 1,000, I think I'll be able to get him on camera to say hello. So he's the guy that does all the post-production work. So there you go. So that's the team. So I'm Frost and Niall's in the background. Now, moving on. February. 18th of Feb, we had the Planetfall Tyrannosaurus update. Now, this was a big update. There were quite a lot of changes that were done to Planetfall. For those of you that are already following my channel, you'll know that I kind of cover Planetfall pretty much in depth. And I covered the Tyrannosaurus update. It was an hour-long video, and you're welcome to watch it. It's on my channel. So please take a look after this if that's your game. And the Tyrannosaurus update was interesting. They did quite a lot of changes to the Amazons, which I'm going to be playing on my next in-depth series. On top of that, we also have coming in spring the next DLC. So the last DLC was Revelations, and that came out so end of November, beginning of December. So we're now due for the next DLC, and on their schedule it does say spring 2020. So that could be any time between, I would say, beginning of April and end of June. And what we know is coming with Planetfall, the next DLC, will be a new race or faction, whichever term you want to use. So that's going to be interesting. So that pretty much covers Tyrannosaurus. One last thing to add is they did do a little patch just after that on the 28th of Feb because they discovered there were quite a few exploits that were still in place. Most notably to do with critical chance and the Vorpal sniper, which is always being nerfed. You could basically, with mods and stuff, you could stack up the critical chance to the point where the thing never missed and just did huge amounts of damage. And there was still a problem with the laser cannon as well on the tank for the I think it's the Promethean one. It's either the Promethean one or it was the Vanguard one, I can't remember. But so anyway, they did a few little changes there. But anyway, that covers Planetfall. Moving on the 19th of Feb, we got a game reveal, a new game that's going to be coming to early access on Steam, probably summer of this year. And the reason why I want to mention it is because it's a little bit unusual. It's called Hardspace Shipbreaker. And as you know, normally games are built around building stuff. Well, this is the opposite. You basically play the role of an enterprising young chap who goes out into space, taking on the role of breaking down ships. Now, there's not much news on the gameplay yet. They did talk about it a little bit at PAX East in Boston. But it does seem to be kind of more of a puzzle-solving game. So if you're familiar with Portal from Valve, the same kind of thing. You're presented with a situation, you have to get to an end result, and I would assume with Shipbreaker, you've got bulkheads in the way or certain passages you have to find your way through in order to be able to break the ship apart. So interesting game coming out in summer 2020. Then on the 19th as well, on the same day, we had a No Man's Sky update. Now, this was update 2.3, and it was called Living Ships. Now, before I go into the update in detail, what I wanted to say is I have to retract what I said about No Man's Sky in my sci-fi games to play in 2020. I said that after about 40 hours, it kind of died a death and got a bit repetitive. I've started playing it again, started from scratch, with all the latest updates, including Living Ships. And I have to say that it is an enjoyable game, and I do recommend it. There's a lot to do in No Man's Sky now. Initially, it was kind of a bit bare bones, but now you have a main quest, which deals with Artemis, and then you have all these side quests where you're building a base, and you get all these kind of employees in your base, and they all have particular requirements. You have to run around and sort stuff out from them, as well as kind of doing all your usual exploring and stuff like that. So that's looking pretty good. Also, the multiplayer side, the game is looking very active. If you go to the space anomaly, which is kind of like a shared space, there's lots of people flying around. There's lots of activity. I don't particularly play multiplayer myself, but there's the Nexus sort of challenges every weekend, which is co-op play, and they do seem to be very popular. There just seem to be a lot of people on the weekends. So No Man's Sky, please take a look at it. And now we'll come on to the Living Ships update. So the Living Ships update, few things. The first thing is obviously we have now living ships. Now this is a really good concept. What it is that you get this thing called a void egg, and you actually grow your ship. And so you start from an egg and you end up with a ship. And all these ships are procedurally generated. So in theory, no ship should ever look the same. Each one will be utterly individual, which is really, really cool. And there's a whole mission set to go with that called Starbirth, which takes you through the whole process of creating your new living ship. On top of that, there have been some extra little updates. So they've added these things called space encounters, and I would call them particularly pulse drive encounters. That generally you kind of had this dead time when you were using the pulse drive to get to a planet. And now at random times you will get a message pop up saying there's something to check out. You can come out of pulse drive and you'll have an encounter. And this encounter can be all kinds of different things, all kinds of like kind of different little mini events, as well as trading, that you may get some random NPCs sort of dropping by that want to trade with you and may trade stuff that's not easily got hold of on the market. So that's pretty good. NPCs will now also randomly communicate with you when you're in space, offering you once again trades and possibly other events or other tasks to do. And then there's some quality of life stuff as well. So they've got this thing called a stack halver, which is great. If you know, with No Man's Sky, inventory is an absolute pain, where now you can, with a mouse click, you can actually split your stack in half, and that's actually a big deal. So that's brilliant. With multiplayer, you can now warp as a group, and then your exocraft, which is kind of your land-based vehicle, you can now summon that anywhere in the system. So that's kind of been expanded, so that's really cool as well. And now you don't need to scan planets every time you go back to a system. If you scanned it before, then all the details will be available for the planet when you're in space. So that's a great little quality of life change as well. And the final thing is that before you could get stuck when you're on a planet, you could get stuck in buildings and in geometry and stuff. You can now reverse, just like you do in space, you can now reverse in atmosphere and get yourself out of that sort of pickle. So overall, very good. So all kinds of stuff happening with No Man's Sky. And then we come on to Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. Now I have to say, I've never played this game. It's kind of passed me by. It's been out a couple of years now, 2 or 3 years. I had loads of DLCs. It is a turn-based strategy game with kind of cinematic combat. So you set up all your moves, and the Cylons do the same. And then after that, you get to watch your battle in a cinematic display. So if you have played the game, then I'd love to hear your views on it in the comments. Please do let me know. Is it something I should be looking at? Is it something that I really should play? They've just announced a new DLC called Ghost Fleet Offensive. And with that, there is a free update called the Fleet Admiral Update. And that involves a balance pass on a whole bunch of stuff. And they've changed the mechanics apparently to boarding. So just wanted to bring you up to date on that. So that was Battlestar Galactica Deadlock. So next up for February, we have on the 27th of Feb, I found this tweet announcing Homeworld Mobile. Now we're all waiting for Homeworld 3. That's the biggie. Now I've played Homeworld 1 and 2, and 3 is, I think, due maybe next year, 2021, I think they're looking at. But apparently they want to keep us occupied in the meantime, and they've announced Homeworld Mobile. By the way, with Homeworld 2, I started producing videos for that, and there didn't seem to be much interest in it, which I found quite surprising. But if you want me to continue doing all the different levels on Homeworld 2, right up to level 15, the final level, then please let me know in the comment section, and I will consider continuing that video series. But in the meantime, until we get Homeworld 3, Homeworld Mobile is available. Now, I'm not a mobile player, I'm a hardcore PC gamer. But for those of you that like to be playing on the move and like to be on the train and on the way to work doing your gaming, then please check out Homeworld Mobile as and when it comes out. And hopefully it won't be next year. And then the final piece of news for February is Satisfactory. So Satisfactory have announced update 3, which is currently available on the experimental tree. And this adds a whole bunch of new features. Now, before I come on to that, one thing I have to say is this game really appeals to me. And I love Factorio. I love Space Engineers. I love all these kind of building games. And obviously Satisfactory is kind of, not to do it discredit, but it is kind of like Factorio in 3D. Although it has its own slant, it has its own feel, and it does appeal to me a great deal. And I am actually considering covering it, as well as Planetfall, going quite in depth into Satisfactory. So if there's something you want me to do, then please let me know. And the reason why I bring this up is because Satisfactory is now going to get a much bigger player base. Up until now, it's been an exclusive on Epic Games Store, but that exclusivity agreement ends in March. And this means that Satisfactory is going to be coming to Steam. Now, Coffee Stain, who are the developers, they haven't announced a date yet because they have to meet a whole bunch of requirements in order to get onto Steam. So they have to add in all the bits and pieces like the achievements and meet all their standards and so forth and so on. But hopefully, if not late March, then maybe sort of early April to mid-April, we might see Satisfactory on Steam. And that brings me now on to the update. So what was in Update 3? Well, the big change in Update 3 was they added fluids. So now you've got pipes and you've got liquids. So you've got water and fuel and all kinds of bits and pieces. And so with that, you get all the necessary elements. You've got the pipes themselves. You've got extractors. You have the pumps. I like the way they got the pumps kind of flowing to show you the direction of the flow of water, which is kind of like really nice. Then as a consequence of that, things like the coal refinery and the nuclear power station now require water. I mean, at the end of the day, you want water for your nuclear power station, right? And so that's all being done. And then they've added as well hypertubes. And these are just kind of like a little fun segment. And the hypertubes are great. So they work with the jump pads as well. So I think the idea is that you can create these kind of looping roller coasters and stuff around your various factories. So they do add quite a good bit of sort of humour and tongue-in-cheek to the game. Then talking of tongue-in-cheek, they've also added the awesome sink. And I love the fact that they called it a sink. I mean, in gaming, you have these things called faucets and sinks, or sinks and faucets. And obviously the faucet is something that brings assets or money into a game. And then the sinks are the thing, did I say sinks? So faucets bring stuff in, sinks pull stuff out of the game. So, and so they created this awesome sink. And the idea is you can put materials into this sink. It then generates a coupon, and you can then spend that coupon in the awesome store to get stuff. And so that's like a nice little feature. And then once again, with the humour side, they brought in the factory cart. So this factory cart is this kind of little runabout, that kind of bounces around, that runs really well on kind of metal plate and stuff. So you can run around your base in it. And it works with the jump pads. So you're going to be going all over the place with this funny little cart. Also, another little feature they've added crouch and slide. So as well as jumping over your ramps and everything, now you're going to be able to sort of do these cool sliding maneuvers under belts and stuff. So yeah, Satisfactory is looking good. And the last thing they've added as well is the Dune desert area, which is kind of like a harder area to start in. And apparently they've done a lot of work on the graphics with that and kind of made it really cool looking. So there you go, Satisfactory. And once again, do let me know if you want me to cover this. I may just go ahead and do it anyway, because it's a game that I'm rather looking forward to playing. All right, and now if we come on to EVE Online. Now, EVE Online has had a rough couple of months. For those of you that weren't aware, they got DDoSed really badly, I think for most of February. It killed all the local chat. It created problems with local. You couldn't see people in local, all this kind of stuff. So it was very, very difficult to organize fleets, because if you didn't have any chat windows, you couldn't organize, people couldn't join fleets and stuff. So everything went very quiet in February. On top of that, CCP also did a lot of changes to mining. And one of the things was they ended up shrinking the rocks. And so all the rorquals got docked up, and not much was happening there. So that was kind of bad news. And then literally just a day or two ago, they announced that they're cancelling FanFest due to the coronavirus. So, a lot of people look forward to that. That is a huge event. There wasn't a FanFest in Iceland in 2019. They did a world tour thing. So it's kind of been a 2-year gap since the last FanFest. Unfortunately, it's now going to be a 3-year gap. So Capsuleers, you're going to have to wait another year, I'm afraid. And I hope all of you that have booked tickets and everything are going to be able to get your money back with insurance and stuff, because I know that getting to Iceland, I've done FanFest once before, it's not cheap, and hopefully you'll be able to get all your money back for that. In terms of other news with EVE Online, that they're updating broker relations. Now, I'm not going to go into the details on that because it's kind of like really kind of in-depth, heavy in-game. In the description, I'm going to point you to DeLone Wolf. DeLone Wolf does videos on EVE Online and does a lot of stuff that's economy-based. So please watch his video, give him some support, and he will be able to tell you all about broker relations. But the other thing they're bringing out, which is interesting, is they're bringing out the Frigate Escape Bay or something. I think it's called something on those lines. And the idea is if you're in a battleship, you can now put a frigate inside your battleship. So if you die, in like for example in a fleet, instead of ending up in a pod and not being able to do anything, you will be in an interceptor or an assault frigate. And then you can fly around and still participate in the fleet. I would personally recommend that you get an interceptor, one that's interdiction nullified. Otherwise, all you're doing is adding an extra kill mail for the people that are shooting at you, because you'll just be trapped in a bubble, your battleship will die, you'll end up in a ship that's still stuck in a bubble, that will die, and then you'll get podded. And they get 3 kills for that. So there you go. So that brings me up to date on EVE Online. And now I'm going to scroll down through my notes and see what I need to come on to next. Right, so we've got to come up to March. Now, with March, first thing was that Kerbal Space Program was due this month. And they announced actually a couple of months ago that it's been put back, which is a shame. So no Kerbal Space Program 2 this month. So that's the other big release. There was around this time, the other one being Cyberpunk. Isn't going to be released. They've said any time between April 2020 and March 2021. So as and when we get some news, I will let you know. But that's really a shame because I was really looking forward to that. Other news is on the 4th of this month, so 4th of March, Phoenix Point are bringing out a new DLC called Blood and Titanium. And that's going to bring new equipment, new mods. There's going to be a balance pass, and there's also going to be a new sub-faction called the Pure. So I've done a few videos on Phoenix Point. So I'll see how much there is to it. If there's stuff that I think is worth a video, then I will produce a video on that as well, covering that update. Then on the 17th of March, I talked about this, I think, in my December update. Yeah, it was my December update. So Stellaris, which is a game that I don't play, but I know there's a big fan base out there. Federations has now been announced, which is the new DLC, and that will be out on the 17th of March. Then on the 20th of March, it's a biggie. Now, I don't really consider this sci-fi, and that's Doom Eternal. So Doom Eternal's coming out on the 20th. It was originally coming out in November of last year, 2019. It got delayed. They put it back, but this date looks like it's set in stone, and it is going to happen. Now, it's a really famous, first-person shooter, right from the early days. I played the original Doom. I remember it well. And so this is the big update to Doom since the last one in 2016. It's got twice as many kind of different types of NPCs as the Doom 2016. And the look and feel of it is more like the original Doom, obviously much better graphics, but it's based around more the original Doom than any iteration of Doom after that. So there you go, 20th of March. And then on the 23rd of March, we have Half-Life Alyx, which is the big flagship VR release from Valve. Now, we were all surprised when this was announced that it's going to be a VR-only game. But apparently, since it's been released, Valve have been selling loads and loads of VR headsets. So that was probably the general idea. And apparently, once again, unfortunately, due to the coronavirus, shipments are now in short supply. So if you've left it late to get your VR gear, then you may not be able to get it in time for the release. Be sure to check the Valve site. Although the good thing with Half Alyx is it does work with all VR equipment of the main ones that are available, like Oculus Rift and so forth at the moment. And for those who don't know Half-Life, you fight an alien race called the Combine. It's a first-person shooter, but there's some exploration and puzzles and stuff like that in there as well. So there you go. So that's the other thing to look out for March. And that pretty much covers this this update. I hope you found it interesting. If you did, then please give me a like. If it's not your liking, you can dislike. That's good too. And if you enjoy what I do, please subscribe. I'm working hard to get to those 1,000 subscribers. You know, that's the time when kind of YouTube really starts sort of pushing your stuff and so forth and so on. And do hit the bell icon if you want to be notified of new releases, because I do release regularly. And that brings things to a close. Thank you very much for watching, and until the next one, bye.